the smell of grass and leather. There were days when we'd play too. We'd cross the lines when the sun would shine and make our dreams come true. I had a glove on my hand and a girl in the stands. She stole my heart like a hit and run. It seems the world was so much simpler back then. We was just out there for fun. I pray for someone to hold your hand, and baseball in the summer, someone to walk with you when this world grows cold. Baseball in the summer, baseball in the summer.
To a BrockvMac Legendary Rivals podcast, and today is going to be strange for about 90% of the world because it's a couple of lefties talking, which is bound to have its own need for a translator. But please welcome the amazing Brock left-hander Dan Pino to our podcast.
Amazing. Thank you, Michael. Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Isn't every left-hander amazing in their own way?
They're special. They're not amazing. They are more special than amazing. But I know what you mean.
Special just makes it feel like we're supposed to be on one of those little buses, Dan. We got to stop that. Right?
Yeah, you can get away with. You can get away with. You can get away with quirks and just say, "Well, of course they're left-handed." So thanks for having me on, and thanks for putting these all together. I have like a lot of the other guys. I've enjoyed them, and it is nice to remember back, and there's so much stuff that you forget, and so it has been nice to remember things that maybe haven't been top of mind for 30 years now.
Well, it's funny. I had a conversation with one of the McMaster coaches today, the infamous Henry Romanowski, and you just wonder what's going to happen when you put a bunch of 50-year-old or darn near 50-year-old guys back in uniform, whether those competitive juices are going to flow and what that's going to look like. It could be pretty ugly, truthfully.
Yeah, it'll be, it's like when you go outside and you start throwing snowballs and you're like, why am I so sore the next day? Right? When you're throwing snowballs at the kids, you're like, oh, I can hit that sign. And we just can't hit the sign like we used to, Michael.
Or that the kids are whipping them back way harder than we're throwing it at them. That's
right.
How that goes.
That's right.
Dan, so, you've got lots of ties to the Brock program, whether it's, friends or a long history attached to it. And we'll cover some of that, but I think it would be interesting for those who don't know, and I think that's a small handful, but why don't you bring people up to date as to what you're doing today? Other than rocking a really good beard.
Yeah. Well, today I live in Guelph. My wife and I have two boys, 9 and 6. Both are into baseball, rep programs and helping out that. I work for Golf Canada, so we're affectionately recording during Masters Week. I don't know when this runs, but hello, friends, for everybody who's out there. I work for Golf Canada. I've been with Golf Canada 20 plus years. Right out of Brock, I worked for the Stompers. I know some of the guys have mentioned Community Park and the St. Catherine Stompers. I worked for the team for a summer, right out of school. And it was right when they were getting sold to the States, and they said, well, we don't need a bunch of Canadians. I'm pretty sure we could figure out minor league baseball in Staten Island without you guys. So it was back to school, and I took a post-grad in corporate communications. And it's just working my way through, PR and media relations and Golf Canada. We're the National Sport Federation. We put on the RBC Canadian Open on the PGA Tour, the CPKC Women's Open on the LPGA Tour. We run the national team. And if you're a golf fan, you probably know that Canadian golfers are doing really well. I don't want to say golden age because it means that it's going to come to an end. as one of my colleagues used to say. But Canadian golf is in a really good place. A lot of people are playing, and so it doesn't feel like work, and I guess that's a good thing. My dad would have said.
That's amazing, Dan. I think, and we'll get into, you know, some of the weird things you will have had to deal with in the last couple of years, the live tour and some of that stuff, which I'm
Yeah.
sure has been interesting to say the least. So I think super cool and really interesting that you can kind of live a passion working with athletes and working with the development of sport. So we'll definitely jump into that, just like one of my golf shots, right in the middle of the pond, baby. When we get going. But before we do, let's go back in the time machine a little bit.
Yeah.
I want you to tell us about where you grew up and how you developed a love for sports and maybe a little bit of your influences before there was university in your
Yeah.
front windshield.
Sault Ste. Marie, born and raised. We're Souligans. I know you had Mike Crusoe on a few episodes back. It's different. The seasons are shorter. It's good baseball. It's tough baseball. We have the benefit of being a border town, so a lot of our high level baseball was up through northern Michigan. Eastern Upper Peninsula, and you'd play the. I guess a lot of the programs were connected to legions. So Outpost, 351 or whatever it was, they were all sponsored by their legion. So we Brock was not my first exposure to U.S. baseball. Believe it or not, we had access to a good amount of baseball growing up, and then obviously the Northern Ontario Loop, Sudbury, North Bay, ourselves, Timmins, and then obviously tournaments wherever we would go. So, Sault Ste. Marie, born and raised, and it's my first go around when I started with the program. That's the thing that people wanted to learn about. They're like, Sault Ste. Marie, eh? Like, what's the Sioux like right now? And it's like, well, it's just a normal tough town, right? It's a steel town. So
That's and so there wouldn't have been, you weren't playing high school baseball, but you're playing rep and you're getting over to the U.S. and what would be, you say, given that you're raising kids in Guelph, what would you say is one thing that people don't understand about raising children in Northern Ontario, and maybe a little bit about life in Sault Ste. Marie? Because we just had Rob Pino on from McMaster, who relocated to Sudbury because he wanted more exposure, less traffic, more exposure to the outdoors kind
yeah.
of life for him and his kids. But give us your thoughts on that.
Well, first of all, if you think that Brock and Mac had a rivalry, you ask somebody from Sault Ste. Marie about Sudbury, and you'll know quickly that that's what real rivalries are. But I mean, Northern Ontario, it's very community, and it's if you're not familiar with it, it's isolated, and if you are familiar with it, you're really a part of something, So whether it's sports, school, activities with your kids, my friends and buddies and family that stayed there, they're like just generations are familiar with each other. And so, living, my wife and I, we live in Guelph. We've got a great friend group, and I've got, my work colleagues in Oakville, and, we spend a lot of time at the campus, but it's just a different level of community. And I know that, kids sports will sort of bring, it'll bring more of that together as well. You have different friends groups, but it's home. It's one of those ones where it's hard to understand what Northern Ontario is all about. You're right about the outdoors. It's a different pace of life if you want it. I mean, you still have stress and pressure and mortgages, but if there's a ton of people post COVID that just said, I don't need the hustle and the bustle, and I want to live my life and enjoy my life. It is a great place to enjoy your life, enjoy your family, your activities. The one thing from sort of kids' activities, especially when we were growing up, there was less of the club sports and the sort of year-round sports and the training type environments that you see today. And maybe that's just a function of kid sports today, but we were outside. We, our if before baseball season started, you're just outside. You're playing with your buddies. If it's road hockey or if it's snow football or tobogganing or whatever it was, you were just doing things with your buddies. And there was always this camaraderie and a good level of athleticism, and it might not have translated to club type sports today, but I mean, kids were athletic. They were doing things together, and they were just playing.
Yeah, yeah, and I think we see that with a big dichotomy of even things like what you see now, where kids are isolated to one sport for the year. Wayne Gretzky spoke out about that not so long ago, that he played baseball and hockey for most of his life, and he equally dove into both. And
yeah,
he felt it was important for him to be as great a hockey player, for him to have had the experience of playing baseball. So I think that well-rounded, just always being active and developing different muscle memory is really important.
I mean, all of the sports science will tell you, and Guelph Canada, we're a national sport federation, so national team, you get access to all of these best practices in terms of long-term player development, long-term athlete development. Every sport has it, soccer, golf, baseball, you name it. And everything is all about age and stage appropriate training, competition, coaching, impact of parents, impact of club and community and resources and facilities and all these different things. And none of the research will tell you that specializing at an early age and singular focus is the way to go. And, part of that is just giving your muscles a rest. Part of it is just learning new things. Having a bit of an anticipation for when you can get back to sport, whether it's golf, baseball, whatever. So, we didn't have a year-round program. Like we'd end sort of that Labor Day OBA championships, do the athletic banquet, and we'll see you guys maybe in the late winter for some high school, throw the rubber balls around, and then get outside. And you don't know what you don't know. So did we miss out on anything by not having year-round training? I don't know. We just, when baseball season started, you went all in.
Did you have anyone that was a big influence when you were growing up in terms of your love of sports? Were there a coach or a sibling or your parents that stood out?
I think from a baseball perspective, a lot of the coaches that we had, both house league and rep, I remember having three brothers that just decided they wanted to coach a baseball team, so they coached a house league team. They were the greatest coaches. They took feedback from the kids. They set a good program. They kind of held us accountable. They had no horse in the game in terms of picking favorites, and you end up winning a good amount of games, and you had a lot of fun. And this just to show how different it was. You get a ride with one of the coaches home, one of the brothers, and he's like, "Hang on a second, can you hold this?" And he's rolling his own. He's rolling his own cigarette. He's rolling a cigarette with his own tobacco, and it's like you don't think it's a weird thing, but you look at it today, you're like, you got a kid in the car, and you're hand rolling a cigarette. Like it's just different. Seems like a lifetime ago, but those guys were pretty impactful. A couple of guys that were really important to the Sault Ste. Marie minor baseball program. Mike LaBelle was really impactful, just in terms of having it not just a team but a program. Coaches like Ed Jordan, impactful as well. Again, they brought a more serious sense of baseball to it. There was a coach that we had. His name was Brian Saccaracci. He was a teacher. He was a high school teacher, and he was probably he was a character and just animated and great with the kids, and he held us accountable. He treated you he treated you give you responsibility and accountability, and just things that you take away from baseball and Sault Ste. Marie, and then you go on to a completely different level of baseball when you come down south.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's we all have our influences. Do you remember how were you as a student in high school, and what was, do you remember what the criteria was for the universities you were looking at?
Yeah, you know what? Pretty good student. And it was an interesting, they do the school visits, right, where the different universities will come and do the open houses. There was a just a group of buddies and I that were in, you don't have the specialized education program that you have now, where it's like, okay, here's different paths. Business seemed to be the path. If you liked accounting or if you like, math or economics, oh, you should go into business. And so, um, Brock was a school that really resonated for a lot of like a bunch of guys. Actually, there was 6 of us that lived in a house from Sault Ste. Marie, the Sioux boys, and we had a great time. And it was family. So you hear some of the other podcasts, the guys felt maybe a disconnect from home, or like, what do you do away from baseball? I mean, baseball was just part of the experience for me. Like, I had a sense of Sault Ste. Marie and home with me. So the adjustment wasn't difficult. It was, based on how I started with the program. I had no line of sight to training camps or any of these pressures that I hear some of the guys talk about. It was probably just responding to an ad or a club poster that one of you guys put on the wall saying, "Hey, there's baseball tryouts," and I'm like, I have a glove. I don't have my cleats, cup, anything. We'll see how this goes, and I'll get my dad to ship it up. So I responded to your ad in the during Frosh Week.
It wasn't during Frosh Week. It was, funny enough, it was in the January portion of 1990. 94. Yeah, sorry, 94. And no, 95. January 95 is when we plastered most of the school with posters and those banners. And Ted and I have been going back and forth on whether we actually put a big banner across the top of Thistle Hall that said, "Join the baseball club. It's better than sex." And I can't remember
I
whether
don't
we did
remember.
that.
I don't remember that. I do remember. I had the experience of you come, you move in, live in residence. Frosh Week, you go through that, and you're just kind of just absorbing the experience, and you see these. They're clubs. It was the baseball was posted like a club, like a whatever, and I'm like, well, I played baseball. Like, I wonder what this is all about. I don't have a car, and I think it was like junior varsity or whatever it was called. It was like, oh, there's baseball tryouts, and I'm like, oh, I'll see what that's like. So I had to find I think I took a cab to Thorold,
Okay,
to
so
wherever the park was.
Dan, here's a good question, and it sounds like you chose Brock because you had some friends going there, and it appealed to you just in terms of the business program. And but when was your first year at Brock? Was it
95,
the fall of
95,
94?
and if, some buddies and I, we did a visit. You go and visit a couple schools. Went to London. A buddy of mine that was planning on going to Fanshawe. We went. I wanted to see Brock. We had some friends that were there. He wanted to see Fanshawe, so we just came down. We were in high school, and we enjoyed the campus, and it was just felt right. It was the right size. And I think because some of the guys were going as well, it was like, okay, well, we can, like, there's just familiar, and I'm by no means a business mind. I found out I think I found out in the halfway through second year, where the economics professor suggested that I go speak to, I don't know if it's guidance or whatever the guidance counselor of university was, the registrar's office, and so you should consider switching programs, because you're not going to pass my class, and I don't think you're going to do very well in business going forward. It's only going to get harder. So I was I switched from straight business to business communications, which was more of the marketing and comms element, which you just didn't know. You applied because you think you're good with accounting or economics or math, and at that level they were really hard, and I just didn't. I wasn't. Maybe it's because I'm left-handed, left brain, right. But which one is
Right,
the one that's
right.
good at math?
We're right brained. Yeah,
Yeah,
that was
not good at math.
very, very generous of that prof to prophesy be a profit on your future in the business program. So,
Well, my buddies that were in the same class were like, "Hey, where did you go?" And I'm like, "What's his name?" I think his name was. Oh, geez, he was the economics professor. I think he ended up buying. Geez, the Cat's Caboose. He was in Kirshner, maybe. Doesn't matter.
oh
I guess
yeah,
he's an impact. Professor Kirshner, whatever it
yeah.
was. But anyways, I'm like, Kirshner told me that I'm not going to pass his class, so I had to go figure out another path. I didn't want to call home and tell my parents that school's going to come to an end. So I switched, and all of my first and second year to that point, mandatory classes counted as towards my electives in third and fourth year. So by the time I got to third and fourth year, I'm taking first and second year mandatory communications courses, and I just sort of caught up, and it was great. It was the right path for me, and managed to stay in school, and I don't know that baseball necessarily impacted it. I just wasn't good with the stats and the
Yes.
business math type disciplines. It wasn't for me.
Stats was atrocious. So we'll talk a bit about stats a little bit later. So you come in the fall of 1995.
Yeah.
So that means did you participate in the training camp in Thorold?
No. I by the time I came, Frosh Week had happened, and it was probably during Frosh Week that I saw this tryout junior varsity or whatever it was. I think it was at the park in Thorold. I remember LePage being there. I don't remember who else. I think we had like some practices, and games might have just got rained out. Like I don't even know who we were supposed to play against. Again, I didn't know. And so because I'm just sort of peripherally connected to this baseball program, my buddies, they're like, how was baseball? I'm like, I don't know, guys. Like, I got no idea what's going on. Are there any games? I'm like, I have no idea. And then, at whatever point they say, okay, you're going on the trip, or you're getting called up. Again, I have no idea if that's even a thing. Like, it felt like a bigger thing than it was. And so you go and you sit on the bench, and you're meeting guys that have been together for, at that point, a bunch of weeks. Short compressed season. So if it's the third week in September, or even the fourth week in September, I mean,
We've been together
half
for
the
a month and a
season's
half.
done.
Yeah,
Half
we
the
were
season's done,
together
right?
for a month and a
Friendships.
half at that point. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just doing all I can to make friends. I'm just trying to figure out who's going to be nice to me. I mean, Mike, you were very nice to me, maybe because I was left-handed. I remember there were a few guys that were real, and again, like, just welcoming. Again, because who's this guy? And we've got our team. Didn't have to go through training camp, all this stuff. But I remember, I hadn't seen Matt King since I watched that podcast the other day, and just bullpen catcher, go warm up, and just a guy to talk to. Mark
Now,
LePage was just an open guy to talk to, and Brian Simmons, like, just a wacky. And I never knew if he was punking me, or if we were just having a good time. But it's like, I don't care. Like, I'll talk to anybody. Grucci was in. I remember Grucci was in one of the other residences. He was real helpful early on, just in terms of like, hey, here's where we got to go. Here's the bus. Here's the vans. So he was really good at, just in terms of making you feel welcome, right?
yeah. And it was hard because there's the situation that I'll talk about now, because 30 years later. But Steve Vautour, who ended up becoming the starting shortstop, came late. He spent maybe a week or two on the JV team, but then he came up and he started. He became the starting shortstop. So one of the guys that had that position and probably thought they were going to be playing it for the year was quickly relegated to real severe bench duty. That caused some issues there, right? So, the people that would have been maybe a little bit more on ice about their footing, because it wasn't easy pitching in an aluminum bat era against the top Canadian teams, but also the American ones. Everybody's stats didn't look so pretty. Let's put it that way. I think there would have been a little bit of, oh, I hope I'm not going to get cut now as a result of that. So some guys may have been a little bit reserved, but I you just had a big smile and we're happy to, had a great attitude. So those things made it easy for someone like me. And other, our pitchers were the leaders of that team. We were older. Uh, the bigger personalities were there. Rob Green was a big personality, and Chris Ebel was kind of like Mr. Invincible. Everybody loved the way that he was super composed and just did his business professionally. And
Yeah.
so yeah, being a left-handed pitcher never hurts, because guess what? Those guys on a team always get treated a little differently. And,
Yeah.
I think it's a fun thing. So,
I
I'm glad
remember
that you get the
warming up.
experience.
I remember warming up, cooling down, warming up, and it was just like, in the event somebody gets in trouble, you might go in, you might not. And I'm just like, how does this work? Like, do I warm up or not? Am I going in? Am I not? I don't even know if they know my name at this point. Just like, go warm up. It's like, all right. Like, I'm not familiar whatsoever. And it was a great experience. Maybe it was a good experience to kind of, fly on the wall, because so much had probably come together at that point. So, I have no expectations of, hey, here's how much I want to play. There was no doubt that I had a level of confidence in my own abilities to get outs, to throw strikes, to work quick. And it's not my time. It's not my time. And I had no bad feelings about sort of just being a part of it. Like, I enjoyed being a part of it, and seeing it and absorbing it. And I can't remember whose podcast it was where they talked about how hard it was to pick the 25th person on the roster.
Jeff Lounsbury.
Yeah, and if I'm your 25th person on the roster, I'm probably a pretty good addition. I'm a people guy, and an extra arm, and whatever. Maybe I was 26 at that point, because who knows? But it impacts, and I was not bothered by how much or how little I was a part of it. I was learning as how this all worked.
Yeah, it's and again, what is the expectation, right? People don't understand that at that point, freshmen are 18 or 19 years old. You have people like me floating around who are 23, and you got folks like Rob Green who are 24, 25 years old. Like, it's men, right?
Yeah.
From that perspective. And, some very experienced people. So, you're going to feel your way through that and learn the culture, see Coach McRae in action, which not a lot of people who played in 1996 and on have seen Mike. But Mike's something else when he's running a dugout and running a practice. And
it really was, it was as high a level of structure as I've ever seen. And it gave me thought to, okay, what would a U.S. program run like, minor league program run like? And that was it. There was bench coaches, and there was individual specialized coaches, and you had Mike, who was, he had that confidence and not fear that the players had, but there was certainly a respect for the program, the rules, the discipline. I guess discipline is probably the word, and I don't think that's a bad thing. Those are things that, if you're going to take life lessons away for how to run yourself, discipline's not a bad thing.
No, I say it all the time. When you go into the business world, there's expectations that you show up on time. There's expectations that you do things by a certain date. There are requirements that don't allow you to have always. It's not a democracy. Sometimes you're in a structure that says, I've got to function within this.
Yeah.
And the other thing that Mike did, which I owe him to this day, is he showed all of the players what excellence looks like, not just really good or not just great in Canada. He showed everybody what an excellent program is, regardless of country, regardless of level of ball. That those are all dictated by talent and weather and geography and some other things. But no, just what a standard is, an excellent standard. And that was really great. before we kind of, go sauntering into your subsequent years at Brock, I'm interested in, as a pitcher, I like getting into pitching chats because
Yeah.
what pitches were you throwing? And everyone's raved about your pickoff move. You'll
Yeah.
notice that we haven't had 39 podcasts full of Poelman. Your pickoff move was great because I threw it into the dugout in the block.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about, what your artillery was as a pitcher and what your mindset was as a pitcher. Were you always a pitcher? They tend to make lefties into pitchers, but did you play a position as well? That kind of stuff.
I remember, growing up, you're playing house league, and house league is select, whatever it was. And I remember winning an MVP, like a house league MVP or whatnot. I was a third baseman and I pitched, and I had developed a curveball, and it was actually Mike Crusoe who taught it to me. And it was a spike curveball of some sort, which makes no sense because you're so young, your hands aren't big enough to throw it, but this ball would the bottom would fall out of it. And so I had this incredible season. I'm not pitching, I'm playing third base, I'm hitting, and it all just went away. Like the next year came, and I couldn't remember the grip. I couldn't figure it out. I had to reteach myself a curveball. Mine was more of I guess a 10-4, throw it at the lefty's front shoulder, wait for him to sort of rock back, falls into the middle of the plate, and you start walking off the plate because you're like, that's strike three, it. They're not going to hit it until you start facing like good left-handed hitters, and they stay in there, and they hit it a mile, and then you realize I might need something else, right? I might need a bit more, but pitching wise, I would say durability, good control, very, very good control. I didn't throw hard, but I could hit my spots. I didn't walk a lot of guys. I remember there was I would think in the 4 years, or call it 3.5 years at Brock, call it 4 because I was, didn't play much in that first year, but I probably didn't walk 10 guys, and
Wow.
it's probably closer to 5, and there might have even been a pass ball. Again, I'm a reliever, so you come into situations, but real good control. I like to work quick. When I wouldn't want infielders bringing balls out. It would be one warm up, toss it from behind the mound to the catcher, throw it down, and let's go. Like let's get into it. And so you throw a lot of strikes, you work quick, infielders are sharp, and I probably needed that because you don't throw hard, so you're hitting spots and junk. And, you kind of teach yourself a change up, which gets better as you get older. But resilience, durability, there was no such thing as relievers when we were in the Sioux. Like we would just, like, if you pitched your 7 innings, or 6 in a loss, or 7 in a win. And I don't remember, other than some tournaments where you might go in and relieve somebody, and your arm, it's not best practice for arm care. But I don't know that we had 5 pitchers in some, in some of those years where we had probably 2 or 3 starters, and you would mostly finish your game. And if not, one of the other guys would go in. So going in and starting at Brock, becoming a reliever, you're just used to it. And I don't know who it was. One of the coaches was like, well, what are you? Are you a starter, reliever? And in the back of my mind, I'm like, well, we don't have relievers. And it was just, if you're pitching the game, like it was not this thing. So, you become a reliever, and durable, and rubber arm, I guess they call it. I get more sore now, but I would say durability and control, and obviously a pickoff move, which was really good. You could sort of, you hang your hat up, and you look back, the music stops, and you're like, that pickoff move was pretty good. It was a reverse bicycle, kind of a leg roll, whatever it was. I mean, I can remember a game in the Northern Ontario League where I gave up 3 hits. I pitched 4 pitches and I picked 3 guys off in the same inning, and it was the first inning of a game. So can you imagine? Can you imagine a first base coach going bananas, yelling at the umpire that that's a balk, yelling at his team to pay attention? Very next pitch, another single, and Crusoe, or Arbs would probably verify it. Another single, another guy on first. Coach is talking to his guy, saying, "Hey, watch the move." Still yelling at the ump. Picked off. Coach going crazy, right? It's his responsibility to make sure that this doesn't happen. And this is the first inning. So third batter, and you know how excited the guys get when you get an out like that. They're juiced. And so third guy gets a hit, and the coach is like, "Do not leave this bag." He's beside himself. And I think it was you fake over, you throw ball 1 or whatever it was, and on the very next pitch, you kind of get him. And can you imagine an inning of 3 picks?
I cannot.
Be the coach. Be the coach on the team that just had 3 guys get picked.
My head immediately goes to what would Daryl Kemp say?
Yeah,
which would have been some outlandish comment.
Yeah, like rules are basically, you can only go 45 degrees. You can't lean. You can't go past. Like nobody. I don't think the coaches. I don't think the umpires. If you ask them all what it was, they would tell you a different thing. And I was very fortunate it helped me get a lot of extra outs that maybe I didn't deserve. As long as somebody didn't hit a double, I was fine. If somebody got themselves to second base, then it's like, all right, now you have to worry. But if there was a guy on first, and I pitched most of the time to Matty Fletcher, and great catcher and real competitive, and would take it personal if a guy stole a base. So between the two of us, he was probably mad at me if I picked a guy off, because he would have thought I would have got him out anyways. So better you than me. And it's like, all right.
That's a standard Fletch answer right there. But, I can't imagine what Coach McRae would have done to the team and the players that got picked off 3 in a row like that. It would be
4 pitches, 3 hits.
Yeah, that would be a podcast just on its own with the punishment we all would have had.
We did a spring, they had the spring season. I don't know what year it was. I think it was the year that the sort of spring that Tinnish had gone to Niagara. So we played against Niagara, and because I always knew that this pickoff was an option, I probably didn't pay attention enough to the pickoff plays. I didn't need them. Like the pickoff plays were for, so the wheel play or so guys on first, American team, so they're going to run, they're going to be aggressive, and they call whatever the play is, where the first baseman runs in yelling bunt. Second baseman comes around and they throw it. Well, I am not paying attention to this. I'm like, I want my shot at this guy. So I'm not looking like these signs. I'm not even looking at these. I'm not even looking at these signs. And they call this play, and I basically throw it down the right field line because the first baseman's not there. And they're like, you missed the sign. I'm like, why are you putting a sign on?
Seriously,
what are we doing here? So then it's a whole thing, but.
We need to write our own guide for left-handed pitchers, right? First off,
why would you call that? They're like, well, you didn't get the sign. I'm like, I can't even see the signs. And that was another thing. Like, it might have contributed to why I didn't hit anymore, because my vision would just get bad, and you pick it up late. But when I was pitching, for the control that I had, I couldn't see the signs, like the. Single fastball, 2 curve, changeup. I had the hardest time, so I would stare in and squint. And why don't you get glasses? And I didn't have glasses until just for some class purposes. But I think my signs, my own personal signs were: if you grab your mask, that's a fastball. If you adjust your chest protector, that's the curve. And if you drag your fingers through the dirt, that's a changeup. And so this was like. This is the arranged pitcher catcher signs, and it only got worse as I got older. And it's like these are things that catchers will do naturally. So like you get crossed up and you stop, redo it. That's why I couldn't see the signs half the time.
Thank God you didn't have 6 pitches like that guy I had to
Yeah, no,
tutor.
three and a
Three's
pickoff.
a good one, and the hard part is if they ever gave you the get the kind of the thumb, right? If you stuck the thumb out, it was throw to first, and then if they flipped it over and gave you the bird, you're supposed to nail the guy.
I didn't need the prompt on when to throw to first, and maybe it was just a matter of we had a if it was Fletch or whoever, it was just a good vibe. Like and you probably get it. You pitch when the catcher. I mean, the catcher would always call the game. If it was very rare that if it wasn't a grip or whatever, I did not call my own game. He puts a spot down, I hit the spot. He calls low outside. Give me 3 inches outside of that. Give me 3.5 inches outside of that. And we would live low. We would pitch quick. I mean, I never talked to him after we all wrapped up and said, "Hey, did you enjoy me pitching to you?" I mean, I didn't throw hard, so I wouldn't have hurt his hand. Whatever he put down, I would listen to him. We wouldn't shake it off. So he was. I did enjoy. I enjoyed pitching to Fletch.
Yeah, you have to have a good relationship with your catcher. Although Matt and I's was so different, and I pitched to him at Brock and then pitched to him in Thornhill. So I had a couple of stints with Fletch the catch, and I think at Brock, I think I was significantly older than he was, and the other left-hander on the team was, other than you pitching some innings, there was a guy named Alex Harold, and Alex was a straight, big curveball guy, moved the fastball around, kind of threw it. I think he may have even had a changeup, but it was pretty standard, and
Lefty
he had to
fair.
work off of his curveball essentially, and I was a big moving fastball guy and a big bending, looping curveball that I would throw in the dirt mostly. And so I was not tons of fun to catch for anybody. But I think Matt, in his initial dealings with me, would come out. He was we were both focused. Everyone knew that I was kind of like this mean, very focused guy when I was pitching. And he would just be very direct. What do you want to do? And we would kind of get there. I kind of grunt at him a little bit. I think he was a little intimidated at first, and it's hard to imagine Fletch being intimidated of anybody. But he was really in it with Ebel, myself, and Green, who were very definitive about stuff.
Yeah.
As we got to Thornhill, at that point he had played at Brock and done his Hall of Fame stint, and he was still really great to me, but he was more confident then. He would come out and go, this is what I want to throw right here. I want you to throw right here. But you're right. Like, that relationship with the catcher is so important, because they are between the catcher and the pitching coach, there's almost very few other people you're going to talk to, other than the odd time, if you're struggling, the first baseman will come over and say, is everything okay, or whatever.
Yeah.
And then the manager, who typically is out there to pull your ass. And like, it's a small world, right? People don't understand how small your world is as a pitcher, and how much of the battle is in your own head. So it sounds like you're very thoughtful as a pitcher. You're thinking of exactly how far you want to throw it outside, thinking of exactly what pitch you want to throw. So I would assume that you were more of a calm and collected type out there. And that's
Yeah, I would say, I think if you can pitch with control, whether it's, again, velocity, if you don't have it, it's easy to say you don't need it. But if you can hit spots, and, they're going to get hits, you're going to make their contact, but, you work quick, get them uncomfortable in terms of the pace. Like, it was throw, pitch, on mound, ready, let's go again. So, if you're a catcher, I think you want that. I wouldn't, it's not 5, 6, 8 warm-ups before we get going. It's like, my arm can't handle the warm-ups. Like, let's just go. And if I ever got the yips where I had a hard time, if I couldn't throw strikes, I can't imagine what pitching would have been like. Because I just had it was efficient, right? So no warm-ups that I didn't need. fortunate to have good control where I could hit spots. Decent breaking pitch that worked well. And I actually became probably a better pitcher against righties than lefties because, good lefty hitters will stay in there against that breaking ball. And a lot of working on the outside, you just tail it, change ups would tail. So I probably had, again, I don't know, not a stats person. I don't look at the stats like maybe some of the, but I probably had as much success, maybe more against righty batters than lefties, which is weird because I didn't throw hard, but it would move from spot to exactly the spot you want it.
Yeah, and that's the one advantage I think lefties have is nothing. At least my experience, I've never played with a lefty that threw straight. I played with lots of righties where it was poker straight. They threw hard, but it was.
Yeah. You always wish you threw harder. I mean, you always wonder, okay, if I threw 5, 8, 10 miles an hour faster, what would baseball have been like? Would it have been different? I don't know. It turned out pretty good. We had success. Success in the Sioux. Obviously, the program was successful, and we got a chance to win a national championship. And if you can win the last game of the year or a last game of your career, that's pretty good. It's a pretty good feeling, right?
Dan, unless you're going to become a Major League Baseball player, which, all due respect to the players of Brock, there's probably been a handful in the entire history of 30 years, and handful to be generous, that had the overall overwhelming talent to be major leaguers. Okay.
Yeah, it's still part of a university experience. I mean, my again, when I left and went home from the ball field, my buddies, they just kept me grounded. And it was like going home to your family and 5 brothers and, how was baseball? What's for dinner? And, you just help each other out. I remember, and they still, you're on the group chats with your boys and the guys that we live with, the group chat. One of the guys posted the other day, I would always come home, ice my arm, and I would fall asleep. Like, you're just tired, long days. So I would, you gear down and you've got your cup on, t-shirt, ice in your arm, and you're fast asleep on the floor. And they've just got photos of me icing all over the house. And it's like, okay, baseball's done. Like, let's live life. And we had a good solid, it felt like home. I didn't miss home. I had home with me. And it was a good balancing experience. Like, when baseball ended, you miss it. Like, you miss it in the off season, but you feel your time with other stuff. And it was a good, solid university experience. And my buddies, the Sioux boys made it worth it. And I call them the Sioux boys because it's like, we're all from the Sioux, and it becomes like, you guys are like weird. And it's like, well, it's just, hooligans. Well, that's how it is.
Yeah, it's good to have that. Let me ask you this. You get a cup of coffee really in 95, and then 96, it's a completely different world for you. 9 of the 10 pitchers leave. There's only Chris Hebel left.
Yeah.
And you go from, you get a much more important or more prominent role on that team, and new coaching, new coaches as well. Mm-hmm. So tell me a little bit about, up until the national championship year, what baseball then morphs into for you, because you're much more part of the team. And
yeah, I remember I guess it started, because I was part of it in 95 up until, like, I didn't make the trip to Montreal, and it was like, that's okay. Like, I didn't feel as connected to it. So when I hear some of the guys talk about the disappointment of that first year, my first real disappointment didn't happen until that Dalhousie experience, and it was cold, and it was at home. But you leave that and you're like, okay, we got winter workouts, and again, I'm not privy to any of the stress or pressures of should I or shouldn't I go back. I'm like, I'm in. Yeah, count me in. And I remember, I think it was Grucci's podcast where he would talk about pool warm. I'm upset that he forgets that we would meet I was part of the pool warm crew, where you just sort of shuffle your way across Thistle, and there's that part where it's connected now, but you hit the front doors where the pool was, and you're like, oh man, this is so good. And you're hitting ground. Pitchers, we're not pitching, so what are you doing? It's like you're hitting grounders. You're hitting sort of cross court grounders, and it's early in the morning, and you're like, oh, I'm tired, I'm sleeping. And I think at one point, I think I was hitting a grounder, and I went to swing, and bat went flying out of my hands. And I think I hit Juice right in the chest. Like, it hit right in the chest. And it's like, he's not paying attention. He's not expecting that. And I'm like, I don't know what happened, man. I'm so sorry. Like, I don't know if I fell asleep. And it's like, what are we doing here? Like, this is so strange. But it was, it was, it was a lot of commitment. You're doing that before class, and you just kind of feel, okay, like, I think I'm part of this. You feel confident, you're a pitcher. That maybe there's a bunch of guys that aren't going to be coming back. So you come back the next year, and that's my first training camp experience. And it's high intensity, and there's lots of guys, and there's recruits, and guys who, Fabio and some of the guys that came over from the Ottawa region, and guys who came over from Hamilton, and guys who came from whatever region it was. It was like recruitment happened. And so you got lots of new faces, and obviously good players, and you still had this core program where it was disciplined, right? There's commitment and discipline, and you value veterans, you value sort of just hard work, and you run those polls, and Abel, to his credit, he worked as hard or harder than anybody, and that's an easy guy to set an example for all the pitchers. And it's like, well, if Abel has to do it, I guess we all do. When I first started, I didn't know what his name was. So I thought his name was Eves. I thought he was French. I thought his name was Eves. Because everybody called him Eves. Yeah. And I'm like, is this guy French? He doesn't sound French. Like, I don't, where's he from?
Yeah.
So, he would set a great example just in terms of hard work. And then obviously you do drills that, you're just not familiar with it, in terms of towel drills and more long toss than we've ever done, and fitness. And, it was the training camp experience. You're very proud of yourself. You made the team. You didn't just sort of fall into it the way the previous year went. And then it's just a heavy season, right? The double headers, the American games, you're playing a larger role. You're a reliever, and you're sort of settled into that role, and you're just like, okay, well, you feel empowered, right? You feel they trust me. I throw strikes. Do I want to pitch more? Sure. Would I've loved the chance to start? Sure. But it's like you're just part of it, and whatever it is to help the team. And as a reliever, you're around when it's important. And obviously every part of the game is important, but if you're a reliever who they call in as a lead leverage role, or hold us in here, there's a value to that, right? There's a value to all parts of the game, and I enjoyed it. I mean, I enjoyed becoming a reliever, and each year you become a more important part of the team, a more trusted part of the team, and through all that, you want to be a good teammate, right? You want to be. It's nothing so bad that you want it to throw off the kilter of the culture of the team. Nothing so good that, hey, like, this is just baseball. Like, my buddies, I would leave, and they would keep me grounded. Like, yeah, you're playing a school sport, and it's like, whatever, it's not like it's whatever. Like, you're just one of us. And so there was no baseball or sports ego that you take home with you. And it's just, you're just with good guys. Like, you spend time with the pitchers, and you develop friendships. And, I think Fabio taught me a better changeup, right? Like, and it's just like, well, you're just there to help each other. There was no competition I didn't feel competition among teammates. Like, I think, different guys want to play more or pitch more, and you certainly want to work harder for that. But you did feel the camaraderie all the time, because it was a heavy season. They're heavy seasons.
Well, there's always been a legacy of, the Brock program's always had some lefty pitchers that have made big differences. You think of Joe Arnold, there's been just Arbor. There's been a legacy of two or three lefties on the team always make a big difference, just in terms of how you match up against certain teams.
Arbor, one of my all-time favorite teammates, just so intense and just angst and really talented and again, Sault Ste. Marie guy. So you feel this sort of connection and brotherhood and I know you talk quite fondly about the Oshawa pathway. Like there was a lot of guys that made their way into the Brock program from the Sioux and I think it started with Crusoe kind of giving me a call. He was he was at a program in the States and maybe it wasn't working out the way that he wanted to and he came and joined us for that third year of tryouts and that experience was positive. Arbor, Ryan Johns came from the Sault Ste. Marie program. Creston Rudolph was an outfielder. So next thing you know, here we are. We've got a lot of guys. We've got it's home, and maybe Arb's because he was a lefty. We got along real well, and I got a lot of time for all the guys from the team and over the years. But you certainly got your favorites, right? Is it okay to say you got your favorites?
Oh yeah. Like it's a little bit, I'm happy to admit that I had favorites a little bit. It was really hard in Ted and I's position because we started the program, and so we would have these moments where people would get cut and come to us and say, "Hey, can you get us back on the team?" Or can you, I'm like, "Have you met Coach McRae? Like that's never going to happen."
Yeah,
and it was hard because we had a responsibility to build up the bridges between these factions. There was a big Burlington group there, and there was a big Oshawa group there, some unique personalities, and then later down the line there would be a Windsor group and there would be the Sioux group and these kinds of things. So it's kind of like the circle of life. You always have a pipeline that's actively pumping in players from somewhere, but we'll re-enter when you guys are getting close to that, winning a national championship here. But let's take a little break from some of the baseball and talk about life at Brock. So you're living in a house with a bunch of guys from the Sioux.
We started in res. We started in DQ. One of my best buddies to this day, Mike Magley. We were roommates. Mags, Robbie I, like some of the baseball guys would know because they just became intertwined, right? And that was a big part of it where I remember there was we had a big snow football game. I don't know if might have been second year, and it was just casual banter, but we have this big snow football game in front of the Schmann Tower. The big beautiful lawn in front of the Schmann Tower. And I'm on the Sioux. I'm with my boys, like the baseball guys, whatever. Like you guys figure out your own way. We are not teammates for this thing. Like I'm with my guys. And so we have this massive snow football game out on the front lawn in front of the Schmann Tower, and fun. Like it, and it's like you've got baseball guys and you've got not baseball guys, and it's like it doesn't matter. Like we're just university guys having a ton of fun, and maybe you'll meet up later and have beers, but it was so fun. And to this day, I remember if that game happened on a Saturday, by Monday, and I think forever since, they would put the snow fence across it because we destroyed this beautiful lawn. Like it wasn't Sault Ste. Marie level snow. It was like, maybe a couple inches, and this lawn was destroyed.
I got to tell you, so we can poke fun at Brock a little bit because it's a great university that's come a long way since we were there, but. Do you remember they built that, or they have that? It's that bizarre art sculpture in the front.
Yeah, the eye.
Well, there's the eye, but it's also that, like, it looks like a turtle with its head cut off, and it's hollow, and then it's got 4 legs on it.
Yeah.
Well, so very first year that they put that in, they have lights around it now. Well, there's a reason for that. 1 week after that thing goes, they put that thing in the, in Isaac Brock way, and they put it in the middle of that beautiful lawn that you destroyed later. They run a front page story in the Brock Press that students have been busy getting it on inside the statue.
Yeah.
So they had to go put those lights around it to prevent the students from using it as a hotel room. It's freaking hilarious, right? Brock would do all kinds of silly stuff like that, right? They would just do something, and then it would kind of like be, obvious to everybody that maybe shouldn't have allowed people to use it for their amorous inklings after Isaacs. Or they should have put a snow fence out on if they wanted the grass protected. Maybe you're not going to. You
should have seen the snow, and it's like a little badge of honor. You're like, I think we did that, and then years since, it's like there's the fence, and it's like we know why.
That's the best, eh? When you
Tyler caught one pass the entire game, and it might have been for a game-winning touchdown. He thought he was I don't know if it was. He thought he was like a Super Bowl winning tight end. Oh. We're like, dude, you caught one pass. They threw to you exactly one time. You caught it. It's like you're not that guy. The kids say today, like, you're not that guy, but he caught this game-winning 2-yard.
I'm pretty sure Colin has reminded you every year you talk to him.
2 yards. Oh, it's what tight ends do. I'm like, yeah, for sure. Tight ends that don't play.
Dan, another great question is, okay, we've asked a few people along the way to rank the night spots to go to in the St. Catharines area. So we have Isaac's, we got Gord's and Shooters. At that time, I think Smart Alex is probably rechristened as Oliver's Twist.
Yeah.
Tailgate Charlie's. Some people would go down to Port Dalhousie. Tell me a little bit about what your favorite spots to go were.
So when I started, I'm a December baby. So when I first started, I couldn't go to bars. So a couple of us, we would, obviously you could drink, but you can't go to bars. Or you can't drink at bars per se. And then once you turn of age a couple months later, it was fine. But I wasn't out with the guys when the accident happened it was Tailgate Charlie's at that time. I don't know if you remember it, but one of the students had gotten hit by a taxi, had run out in front of a taxi, and there was a car accident and a fatality. Oh. And it was like, nobody wanted to go to Tailgate Charlie's. After that, it was just this bad vibe from, I think it happened during Frosh Week or just shortly after. And so Tailgate Charlie's was kind of a non-starter. Again, this is first half. Then you turn of age and you're going out more. I loved Gord's and Shooters. I just love the difference in, I used to treat it like, one side was like a real goth, and the other side was like the Muppet Show. It was real different. You can just kind of have your pick of it. I wasn't a big Front 54 fan, like I'm not. You'd see some of the guys, I know some of the guys will talk about Grucci dancing, and I can see that. It just wasn't, you'd go just to go, but it wasn't my favorite. But as second semester started ramping up, again, because we had a good group, we just started going back to Tailgate Charlie's again. And we're like, this is fun. It was just affordable beers, and it was good music, and it just seemed to pick up as that first year went on. And so you have this soft spot for Tailgate Charlie's, which becomes not Oliver's. What did it turn into?
I think Evil said it turned into Arizona's, maybe.
Arizona's, yeah. And then you end up, you got buddies that work there, and so Arizona's was a pretty great spot. Big bucks, I think the Viper in first year turned into big bucks going forward. So, and then Cat's Caboose, like the guys and I, when we had a house, we were down Glenridge Hill. We were real close to Cat's Caboose. So if you were to ask me what's your favorite spot in St. Catharines, Cat's Caboose. We would load up the it was a jukebox, and Pearl Jam, Better Man would always come on towards the end of it, and we would walk home, we'd play pool or Pac-Man or eat wings or whatever it was, watch football. Cat's Caboose probably has the softest spot for me.
No, that's good. It's, and it's still there, right? So that's
Yeah, it's better now. I mean, it was kind of a toilet when we were there, and it's a way
well,
better spot now.
dive bars are kind of all the things. So it's that's great. So, Dan, did you find, especially as you get into '96, and you're now carrying, a course load that's about to be questioned by your prof? Um, did you find it hard, the balance between playing baseball and being a student?
Um, yeah, you know what? I was not there for baseball. I played baseball when I'm at university, and maybe that's a little bit different than how some of the guys would have started. The joke was some guys studied magic because halfway through first semester they just disappeared.
Disappeared. Okay.
Once November 1st or 2nd happened, you would be surprised if you saw some guys around, and it's like that's too bad because for me, I was at university and I just happened to have this great opportunity to continue to play baseball. So um, school was important. Um, I felt like I was a good student. I didn't work, I probably could have worked harder at it. But I got by, and it was a good experience. It's kind of set me up on this path for what I do now. If it wasn't for this economics professor requesting that I leave his program, I wouldn't have made my way into communications. And when post when I graduated from Brock, I said I told you I got this job with the Stompers. I'm like, this is perfect. I'm a baseball guy. I'm gonna work for the Stompers for a year, 2 years, and I'm just gonna work my way into the system up to QEW, and I'm going to work for the Jays. And I remember, you're in this little office on St. Paul Street where the Stompers office was, and these big file cabinets of every player, every file, who hasn't bad attitude, who doesn't run out, who's not working out as a position player, maybe they're good as a pitcher, um, who has who's got medical history of like these types of STDs, and like all the stuff was in these files, right?
Oh my
And I don't know
God.
how long they keep it for, but it was like it's minor league baseball. It was super cool. Got to know a guy named Rod Mahood, who's kind of the voice of sports in St. Catharines, and then when the team got sold, it was like, well, now what am I going to do? So I was either going to go to I had two paths. I was either going to go to Barber's College, believe it or not. I used to cut hair for all the guys in the house and different buddies. I really enjoyed doing it. I thought I would have been a good barber, or I was going to go into corporate communications. And I'm like, I can't go through 4 years of university and then go become a barber. Let me see how this corp com thing is going to work out. So I did it. I was fortunate to have a co-op in the middle of it. That I made my way in Golf Canada. It was the Royal Canadian Golf Association at the time. And that was 2000. So here I am. I'm an intern. I'm a summer intern. Had a chance to travel across the country. At the time, we ran a Canadian Senior Open, and I'm like, wow, there's a lot of people here. And I didn't have a lot of exposure to golf, but Jack Nicklaus played. It was the last time he played the Canadian Open, the Canadian Senior Open in Canada, and the place was crazy. We're in Winnipeg, and then like, wow, that's pretty wild. And then Labor Day weekend's coming up, and it's the at the time Bell Cane Open. Now it's the RBC Cane Open, but Tiger Woods commits. Tiger Woods commits on the Friday before the tournament, which is typical of when he does it. So you didn't buy tickets the way that you do now. Like it was, you called the ticket line, and so communications. We're in the media center, and so they had to reroute the sales line to the media center. Bell being, thank God we had a telecommunications partner. So they reroute the ticket line to these like everyone had all these desks, right? All journalists used to have phone lines or whatnot. So every staff member would have to be in there with, I remember these pink slips, taking ticket orders and credit card numbers. And there was a guy I remember from Sault Ste. Marie who called, and I answered, and it's like, Chris Pewarski, did you go to St. Mary's College? And it's like, we went to high school, and then you're on this like this. It was incredible. I'm like, I didn't know how busy golf was and how crazy it was. It was never crazy like that for a while. I mean, obviously, Mike Weir made a charge in 2004 and almost won, and that was special and heartbreaking. And then you get to see Brooke Henderson and kind of see, and obviously she's a household name now, but Brooke was 12 and 13 and 14 years old, kind of coming into golf, and you sort of feel this sense of pride that you're seeing this career from a kid to arguably one of our top athletes, not one of our top women's athletes, one of our full stop top athletes, wonderful person in Canada, 13 LPGA wins, and she wins the Canadian Women's Open. We were in Saskatchewan, and I think it just gave Canadian golf this sense that Canadians can do it. I think it was 45 years since a Canadian had won that event, and every year the guys would come to the RBC Canadian Open and they get to ask the question, it's been this many years, it's been 50 years, it's been 60, it's been all these years since a Canadian won it. And so I would say Mike Weir almost winning in 2004 was incredible. Brooke actually winning the Women's Open. Rory McIlroy winning back-to-back sort of 19 and then post-COVID in 2022. And then Nick Taylor last year was, to have a Canadian winner at the Canadian Open. The questions can stop, but it was just so special.
Okay, so obviously being in communications with the Canadian Open and the Nick Taylor scenario, how crazy was it dealing with security guard gate where he tackled, is it Adam Hadwin on his way onto the green to celebrate? Yeah, how crazy was that to deal with?
So they don't show it, but there's around the 18th green when a tournament is coming down, there's lots of people who wouldn't otherwise be there that just have a credential to kind of be, they call it inside the ropes, and they're there, right? Executives, media, staff are there, just lots of people. So there's this buzz and this vibe, and it's starting to slowly rain, and Nick gets his way into the playoff, and it's just like this energy. And so we had, Mike Weir was there, Corey Connors was there, a bunch of Adam Hadwin obviously was there, a bunch of the Canaans were there, and then a bunch of the European guys were cheering on Tommy Fleetwood. So Shane Lowry was there, Terrell Hatton was there, Justin Rose was there. Like these are his like their guy, right? So I'm not going to say it was a Ryder Cup vibe, but if you were to ask, like those guys are caddies, like they wanted it for Tommy. And Tommy Fleetwood would otherwise be a fabulous champion, is a great person, and he's an easy guy to cheer for. And it's like, but this is history. Like this is 4 holes of history, and to see like the European guys there next to the Canadian guys was unbelievable. And so obviously the Canadian wins, and you can't be mad at the storyline, even if you're Tommy Fleetwood, and even the Euro guys were like, what a finish. Like for weeks and weeks, like those guys would talk about it was the best finish on the PGA Tour. It's not a major, it's not a all this stuff that's happening in professional golf, but it was the moment. It was a moment. Golf's all about moments, like any sport, and it was such a special moment.
And the security guard got overwhelmed by the moment, decided to
no. So okay, so to clear it up, we have security. You don't want to lose the green because there's fans on all sides, right? And it's by ropes. Like we're not like you could get stormed, and so that security guard who's kind of watching everything sees out of the corner of his eye, not a pro golfer, but a dude in a green level wear hoodie, kind of just charging. And so he does what a good security guard does, and he yaks. And so, the circumstance of it, like Nick Taylor and Adam Hadwin are buddies. They're from the same hometown. They play at the same golf club. Like they're buddies. And so for these two guys to have a signature moment separate from the win, but they're forever connected with this tackle. So So you know the way that media rights work. Videos like this. We actually had our videography crew that was just kind of there for social. They had this sort of the perfect shot where you could actually see the guard coming around the end. He's wearing the rain cape, like the whole thing. It was surreal. So out of the corner of his eye, he sees this thing happening. He goes and he acts, and he did the right job. He did the right thing. Like if that was, any other person, it's like good. Like if you can't, you're not supposed to be there. And so the security guard's job is not to determine who should or shouldn't be rushing the champion at the end. It's just like, no, I got to act. So he did exactly what he was supposed to do. He did a good job at it. And even Adam, when he got up, he sort of, everything was fine. They sort of, they kind of came together. They had that moment, and it will be forever part of the tournament. Unfortunately for the security guard, it's just like you hear words like overzealous and, he did this and he did that. And it's like, he absolutely did his job. And if any other person did what Adam did and got creamed like that, they'd be like, good. They shouldn't have done it. And now Adam's just, he's going to see his guy, right? Like that's his guy. He's got the champagne and if you watch the video, David Markle, who is Nick's caddy, he kind of turns and he sees it happening and he's like, what's going on over here? And then he sees the flag and he kind of walks past the scene and he goes and because caddies get the flag of the winning when they win the tournament, they keep the flag. And he's like, bedlam is happening. I better go get my flag. And so he's just like, he's fine.
It was a picture perfect tackle, at the end of the day.
It'll be part of unfortunately it'll be part of the storytelling leading into this year's tournament. And Adam is a good sport about it. He wasn't injured from it, thankfully, but it's just a moment. And
So speaking of moments, this will allow us to go back in the time machine a little bit. So let's talk about winning a national championship, Mr. Pino, your role in it, but also we can probably shed some light on a few things that you may have.
So you go through the years of obviously you losing the championship to Dalhousie and obviously a great pitching experience that year from what was his name, Trevor Wombat,
yeah.
That's his name. Tough to beat good pitching in sort of that moment. And then the next year obviously with McMaster and obviously a big part of that rivalry was you don't have a rivalry if you don't lose tough games and you don't have tough experiences and moments. And so then you go into your fourth year and it's like 3 years of disappointment, especially for me. It was especially two. I didn't experience Montreal the way that some of the other guys had, but it's too good of a program not to win. And so all parts of this season are just, you might be thinking ahead to the McMaster game. You're certainly not thinking about the regular season. You're looking at the American schedule. And I know it's a big part of the program, but I don't think in that fourth year the American schedule mattered as much as the Canadian schedule. I guess you'd have to ask the guys. Who cares, right? Like these are good reps. But it's like we gotta get past. We have big games to win.
Beat Mac. Yeah, you gotta beat Mac.
Yeah, so it was. I remember it being over. I think it kind of bled into Thanksgiving weekend, like it was a holiday Monday or whatever it was. And I think we lost. The first game, and then won one. And so I can't remember exactly how it went, but I remember it being, it was a nice fall day. It was a beautiful fall day, and you just you win. And I think we were at home, and you just got this sense of like you did it. You're going back to nationals, and whatever happens, right? You don't know. You're not really paying attention to like what other teams, what other conferences. The biggest sort of pressure point was, okay, now you win, and you're like, well, how are we gonna get to Wolfville, Nova Scotia? Isn't that, you're like, how, like that's a long way.
Yeah.
How are we getting there? And it's like, oh, we're taking a bus. I'm like, what? Like, can we fundraise? Can we ask our parents? Like, can't we fly? Like, it's far. So this is like and it's not a lot of time. And this week of, you got this 1 week of practice before you got to, get on the bus. And I remember, you whether it's commiserate or you sort of talk things into existence, I remember talking to Mark LePage, and I always enjoy talking to Mark, and I still do. And we had this, I said, LePage, I said, can we fly if we want? Like, is there any wiggle room here? Like, what do you think? And he's like, no, everyone's, he goes, it's not ideal, but it's team's all going, blah, blah, and it's unavoidable. I'm like, oh, man, I have a friend who goes to Dalhousie. I'm like, we could stay there. So you don't even think about it. So we had, the full number of seats, and we had a GM, Zimmerman,
Yeah.
Zim, and Zim wanted to come on the trip, and he wanted to bring Matt, the bat boy. We didn't have any seats, right? So ironically enough, the Montreal trip, that they didn't have enough seats probably, or not enough interest to sort of bring, any of the JV guys. That's fine, whatever. So I didn't go to Montreal because whatever reason. They're like, well, we have, he says to LePage, he goes, I want you to fly. And, is there anyone specific, like, do you want to fly with somebody? You want to take a player? And he's like, well, Dan has a friend who's in Halifax. He was just talking about. So I think Jeff or LePage calls me over. Like, it's the middle of a practice. This is like one of our last practices before we're supposed to go. It's a workout. And Jeff says, Mark says you have a friend in Halifax. Do you think you'll be able to stay with them if we fly you and him to Halifax? And I'm like, oh yeah, for sure. For sure. Let me make a couple of calls, coach. Whatever you need, coach. So he's like, okay, you guys go, book some flights, make your call, find out whatever's going to happen. So, like, I leave practice, and we all travel together. So they're like, where's this guy going? Where's he? Like, what's up here? So they're like, just don't say anything to the rest of the guys. Get it done. So we go to the on-site travel agent at Brock. Remember, there was a travel agency at the university. So we went, booked 2 tickets. I called my friend. Yeah, no problem. Happy to have you guys stay. And so we flew. So the next day, the bus was loading up, and we weren't there. And it's like, well, where's Pino and where's Mark? And at that point, we're not going on the bus. And it's like, oh, you missed the experience of that's part of the experience. And it's like, yeah, it's part of the experience. But so the penalty was I wasn't allowed to sit. Like, when the bus finally pulled in, they said, okay, go make sure all the accommodations are ready, and just make sure that when we get there, everything's good, right? Traveling secretary kind of stuff. It's like, yeah, no problem. So we're like, I can't believe this. I can't even believe that we're flying. So we fly, get there the night before. The boys are traveling, and the bus pulls in, and we're just like, big waves, like, hey guys, like, we were at the hotel wherever we're staying. And they're like not super happy to see us, but it's like, whatever. Like, you're not really mad at us.
Well, they may have been, because the bus broke down.
It broke down a bunch of times. Yeah, I didn't know, and it's not our fault that it broke down. Like, it could have been the best trip of their life, and it's like, oh, you guys missed it. So you get no seat. I'm like, okay, you get no seat. You got to sit in a cooler. And then obviously we after the win, we didn't fly till the next day. So we went to Peggy's Cove. If you remember Peggy's Cove, they just had that plane crashed in just off the coast of Peggy's Cove. So we went doing tourist stuff with some of the parents that were there. Boys jumped on the bus that was somehow miraculously cleaned. I don't know how they cleaned it, but it was beer soaked the last time I stepped off it. And then I remember getting postcards, Peggy's Cove postcards, and writing it, hey, missed you at Peggy's Cove or whatever. For I think Crusoe and Fabio were living together, and Arbor and John Z and Daryl Presley were all living together. So I think we left postcards under the door, and like, you have no idea how mad we were. I'm like, what are you guys so mad about? It's like, the bus broke down twice. We had no heat. I'm like, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I didn't know. How am I supposed to know? I was at Peggy's Cove. Great experience.
All right, so now you got to tell the story about the ball.
Oh, right. Yeah. Well, so again, you whatever your role is as a reliever, you kind of do your best at it. So I became this late inning reliever, and high leverage spot, and I became a closer. Like, I don't fit a closer's mentality other than I throw strikes and I work quick and whatnot. So
I think that's exactly what a closer is supposed to do.
yeah, and I guess because I didn't throw hard, like I maybe I don't fit the bill, but I can't remember getting saves in what games sort of in the playoffs leading into it. But yeah, and you get a save and they give you the game ball, right? And whoever made the last out gives the pitcher the game ball, and that's just always been part of the experience. Big games, right? So we win. I think you've probably heard people tell the story about, we fall down early. I think we played UNB. We played New Brunswick in the championship, and we fall down early. We tie it. A couple of big defensive plays, and like, we've got all the juice. We've got all the energy. We go ahead, and I think we were up 9-6 or 10-7, one of those. I think it's inscribed in the back of the ring, but I think Ryan Villers was pitching. I think he was pitching well, and they said, okay, Villers, go out and pitch into the ninth. And I think he took somebody hit one back up the middle, right off his kneecap or off his leg, and he came out. And so he could have just as easily gotten the save in this championship game. I think we had a 3-run lead. So now there's a guy on second, and I go in, and it's like, again, you're thinking about, okay, what's the situation? What's the worst that could happen? If this guy hits a home run, we're still winning by one, and we got one out, and there's nobody on. I'm like, okay, so first batter hits a pretty good rocket out to center field, and I think Botts was out there and made the play. Maybe the guy got to third, and doesn't matter. Like, that run doesn't matter. We've got 2 outs, guy on third, doesn't even matter. So last batter of the game, maybe he's a lefty, hits a weak pop up in the infield. Feels like it's a pop up that's up there forever. And Guelph, he catches this pop fly, just an easy pop fly. I think you're probably just sort of shaking. So we just won the national championship, and so you're not thinking about anything like that. So you go and you run, and I remember jumping in Fletcher's arms, and I think it was Caruso who jumped at us, but missed, but pulled us down. So now you're on the bottom of the pile. And I remember with Fletcher, we're like face to face, like you can't move, and you're screaming at each other. You're like, this is amazing, and you can't move, and everybody gets off, and you're just so excited. And Giff hands me this baseball, and he's like, here you go, man. Like, you got the save. Here's the ball. It's just like, oh, it's amazing. And you're not thinking about it. You kind of back pocket or whatever you do with it, and and you celebrate and you win, and you're just you're juiced. And so then we get back to reality, and the guys are like, well, where'd the game ball go? Where'd that game ball go? And Giffen was like, they're like, well, Giff, you made the last out. What'd you do with the game ball? He's like, I gave it to Pino. And now they're all looking at me, and they're just like, where's that game ball? I'm like, oh, I have it. And they're like, well, you got to bring it. We got to get it. We're going to put it in the trophy case at the athletic complex. First championship win. I'm like, okay. And so then we go to the baseball banquet. They keep asking for the ball. I'm like, don't worry, guys. I'll bring the ball. Like, I'll bring the ball. And so we go to the baseball banquet, and they're like, did you bring the ball? Did you bring the ball? I'm like, yeah, I brought the ball. I'm like, I hand it off to whoever was like most excited about seeing him. It's just a baseball, right? So they're passing, like, oh, like reliving the memory of it. And then some of the pitchers, it might have been Fabio Cheeseman, maybe. They're like, I can't believe you gave up maybe it might have been Arbor. I can't believe you gave up that game ball. And I'm like, that's not the game ball. That's just the ball from my bag. It's a game ball. ball, but it's not the game ball. This is the game ball, Mike.
It's so classic.
Yeah. And they didn't know, and they don't need to know. Like, I guess they'll know now.
Yeah, they'll know
But the
now.
win was it, right? And it's pretty special. I always, when I look at the ball, that's kind of the memory. I don't remember at bats. I remember that last inning more than any other at bat in terms of time pitching, but it didn't matter. It was, you won. You win the last game of the year. You had that moment with guys who, some of those guys, between, obviously my first real experience of it was the Dalhousie loss. But some of those guys had 3 years of disappointment. And so to contribute to a championship was awesome, and you play whatever sport or whatever activity. And if you can win the last game of the year, it's pretty awesome.
Well, I think in retrospect too, I think winning just validates that the program, especially at that stage of its development, was the best place to be, for everybody, as a baseball player, as a student. And it's really good validation for everyone's efforts that they put into all of that. I think, that comes with an understanding that when you wear that, the Brock lettering or the big B on the hats as they used to be, there's a standard, and that standard is that you are a championship level team every year, and you carry yourself professionally and with some dignity, and with some dignity for your opponent. Dan, before we get into, because I think that's a great way to kind of wrap up your playing career, and we've talked a little bit about what you're doing professionally.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about, how that translates into, and the lessons learned at Brock translate into your life after Brock, and, specifically what you've learned as a, as a family man and as a person that gives back. Those things are really important.
Yeah. You certainly take life lessons of teamwork. My kids are at an age, my oldest is 9, youngest is 6. They're into sports. Whether it's basketball, both are playing on rep baseball teams now. The youngest is 6. He's playing on a U18 team, and it's so great to watch some of these. Like, they're just learning. They're learning how to throw, and they're learning how to listen. Learning how to be a good teammate. The hitting, the throwing, like some of that stuff, that'll come after, in terms of, like, they're so far from game playing and strategy, but just being good teammates, and the discipline of, yes, they're young kids, but they're part of a team. And so there's personal accountability. Same thing, that's how life is. Life is about personal accountability, and sports is no different. So, I joke with some of the other coaches, when we do some of these infield drills, if a player fires it, like, you have to go get your own ball, and, we would have a coach last year that was like, oh, baseball players, we don't get our own baseballs. And I'm like, who's going to go get that ball? We're going to go, like, who's going to go get that ball? Like, make a nice throw or have a nice run, like, and set a different way. Like, there's pay attention to what you're doing. Work hard in practice, get the basics, the fundamentals down. Whether that's being properly planned at work. Obviously I deal in communications, media relations. At times there's crisis communications. I look at some of my peers at other sports. They deal with real life things, and golf's not immune from crisis, whether it be somebody, a spectator passes away at a championship, or matters of golf. They just creep in. And so the level of preparedness, there's a level of being calm under circumstance, being calm in pressure situations, being a good teammate, not panicking, knowing when to ask questions, knowing when to get help. I mean, these are things that when you're part of a team, and you want that, right? What makes you a good teammate? Somebody who's going to ask questions, somebody's going to pick someone else up, somebody's willing to learn, ask questions, doesn't go in thinking everything. And a lot of these, they're not specifically Brock baseball lessons, but you certainly you had a focus on commitment, whether it's the first training camp, you make the bus, you're on the bus or you're under it, mentality. Like there's personal accountability. That those are good life lessons for students. They're good life lessons today. And when I I'm enjoying being a part of kids sports. I'm not a coddler, in terms of, like, it's their tryout, not mine. Like if with my youngest did a tryout for his team, if he's in the wrong place, I'm not the parent that yells for them to be in the right place. It's his tryout. He's got to be paying attention, or he's not ready to be on that team. And right or wrong, I mean, I believe in that. If he's ready to try out for something, then he's ready. If he's ready to take something on, and if he's not, that's okay. You keep working hard if you really want to do it. Get better. Yeah, everybody has a chance to get better every day. Whether it's good enough to play at whatever the highest level you aspire to, sometimes some luck factors into it. So would I have known that there's a baseball program if I didn't see it on the wall? I would have read about it, I guess, in the Brock press, but I wasn't recruited. There's no, nobody was waiting for me to spike up and walk out there.
I think it's a perfect story, though. Someone who starts off in a JV program that would have had the infamous Birdman of Meriton playing on it, because he was on that team.
Yeah.
I won't mention him by name, but
and I don't remember. And again, like, when I hear some of the other podcasts, there's a lot of stuff you don't remember. And maybe they're just not memorable. Like you remember, like I remember snow football, playing against the guys. I remember the van trips. And I remember that I would always sit with usually the same guys, and same guys would be in the bus, and you'd have the same conversations, and you'd have the same drive from Glenridge area or the university to, if it was Community Park or was it Mackenzie Park by the GM plant? Which is the one by the GM plant?
Yeah, you guys played it. We never had that. You guys got into some sort of thing.
Alex Mackenzie Park was a fabulous ballpark. Fabulous ballpark. Yeah. The one right by the I think it's the GM plant that was right in the back. And I remember when we would come down, we'd have to cut through downtown past St. Paul Street, Chili Pepper, and you get on Ontario Street, and it's one-way traffic, and then it starts at two-way traffic. So when you're making that right turn onto Ontario Street, it sounds stupid, but when you make the right turn onto Ontario Street, there's nobody coming from this side. And so you would always tell the driver, don't look left. Yeah. Don't look left. Don't look left. And it's like, I remember Mark Cheeseman was driving, or if it was Nish or whoever, it's just like, don't look left. Don't look left. Don't look left. Don't look left. And it's like, why do I remember that? And it's like, those are moments, right? Those are the standouts.
After 30 years, it's going to be almost 30. It is going to be a 30-year celebration of the program. And do you still have relationships that you maintain from your Brock years that are still friends today?
Yeah, I mean, Crusoe and I are family. First cousins. My mom and his dad are brother and sister. So that's family first. Arbs, he's on the group chat with a couple of guys. Fabio, I still keep in contact with Fabio a bit. Dixon, obviously through some of these. Obviously, yourself, I've talked to you more in the last little bit, maybe than we ever did when we played together, and I've enjoyed sort of hearing some of the stories and the updates.
Yeah, and like your university experiences are what that's about. It prepares you for life, and it's exciting to hear that that you've had a ton of experiences. The one experience you're going to have after you get off this podcast is you'll have to phone and get your home alarm put in because someone's going to come and try to steal the ball. You know that's coming.
They can have it. And you know what? Like, I've gotten what I need to get out of this game ball, and if the university wants it in the cabinet, or if any one of the guys wanna have it, you know, I'm good with the ball.
Yeah, no, it's good. Are you the bigger question is, are you going to be ready to throw an inning?
Geez, I mean, I guess because we threw so many, you know, growing up, there was no arm care. Who knows? You know, like, it's so sore. A guy who I work with, I help coach his. I'm his pitching coach in the off season for his U12 or U13, maybe it's U12. And you know, I found myself the other day. I was pitching to at bats in the gym, and I'm like, what am I doing? Like, why am I doing this? I haven't warmed up. And it's just like, this is not going to be good the next day. So, and it's only 50 feet. It's not even a 60 and 6 inches. So I have no idea. But I'm sure it'll be a great experience just to see everybody. And
anytime we can sock it to Mac, do something that's going to benefit a couple of scholarship funds, you know, make it through an entire weekend of events, and probably grow a little closer together as a group, I think is well worth it.
I actually enjoy hearing. I actually enjoy some of the podcasts. I don't know some of those guys as well as, you know, as others, but just what people thought about playing against Brock, and it's nice to hear that there was you know, a mutual respect to it. You're just kids in university, and you know, you found your way into this rivalry, and it's fun, and you know, you're happy that you know, people can go on and live, you know, good lives and be good people. And you know, my wife works at the University of Guelph. I live in Guelph now, so I'm an adopted Griffin, if you can believe that. So I go and watch whenever I can if the Badgers are in town.
By looking backwards 30 years and seeing, you know, celebrating it, the aspects that made these programs special, make the game special, maybe the light switch will go off for those players playing at Brock, and the new generation at McMaster, and they'll see that there were some pretty exceptional people that are doing some great things in life because they had the guts to survive a real trying thing. You know, it was really hard. The intensity of that baseball was not something that Canada had seen, and they've used it to learn the lessons that you talked about in life: perseverance, patience, judgment, tenacity, you know, and you embody that quite well, Dan. I think you're the amazing story of, I think, you know, Steve Vautour was on the J, but you were a guy that played JV baseball that then went on to, you know, an incredible career at Brock, and you should be very proud of that accomplishment because it's singular. It's the one that you own. It's a story that you've written, and it's an incredible one. So we really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, it's you take a lot. It's nice to see that baseball is still thriving at the university level. You know, we're better for it. Just, you know, even just sort of catching up on what people are up to. I've enjoyed it. It was a big part of my life. You know, that baseball experience probably led to professional experience. You know, I wouldn't. You know, obviously we had a great amount of success, and it's nice to see. It's nice to see it continuing, and these are helpful. And you know, like I mentioned, I help coach like a U12 team. They got a young shortstop. I think I listened to Steve Gypsy's podcast on the way to practice, and there's a kid. He's a shortstop. He's kind of all over the place, and he's a really hard thrower. And it came back to me. I'm like, here's this shortstop who's going to pitch. And for some reason, I don't know this kid at all. And all I could think was, he throws hard. He's kind of quiet. And I'm like, this is like, I see this. And I see this shortstop in a 12-year-old kid. And I'm going to direct the head coach to say, this guy should be your closer. Don't pitch him as a starter, because he's just wired like that. So
we got way more mileage out of Jip being a closer because we needed him playing shortstop in the early innings, and he was lights out. I'd never played with a guy. We would always have to use one of our younger starting pitchers when I was in rep ball to close games because we would falter. We just didn't have the depth. Now at Oshawa, we had the number 1 ranked team in the province 2 years in a row. So our pitching staff was deep, but it was deep because we had, at that time, 4 or 5 frontline starting pitchers that barely lost. But the problem is we didn't have a closer. If we would have had a gypsy there, we would have won a couple of OBAs back to back. But the role on a team is really unbelievable, and having, I know you talked a little bit about you've got a perfect closing mentality because it is all about throwing strikes, working quickly, and making people not feel comfortable so that they can't rally. Right? People rally when they start to feel comfortable in the box, and they start to feel comfortable emotionally. So yeah, I think he couldn't ask for a better teacher. Let's put it that way. Yeah. Dan Pino, thank you so much for tonight. Really appreciate it. We'll see you before 6.5 months.
Thanks for organizing all these, and there are a lot of memories that come back, and faces and names, and so kudos to you. And I know this is not a small amount of time that you're putting in on it, so thanks for doing it, and thanks for having me.
Thanks, Dan.
The smell